left to right. Russell Westbrook.
You love the Philadelphia Eagles. Let me get a hell yeah!
What's up, everybody? It is Deibs, Mr. Crockpot on Twitter. This is Party on Broad. First and foremost, I want to thank all of our new YouTube subscribers over the last couple of weeks. We've went from 500 subscribers to like nearly 900 in the last couple of weeks. We're getting close to 1,000 subscribers. We love you. Thank you so much again. Second up, we have a giveaway going on right now with our Suit Up podcast. This right here is a 168-piece Darth Vader Lego set. Make sure you check us out at SuitUpTPL on Twitter. Like, retweet the tweet, and add a huge Star Wars fans on it, and you have a chance to win a 168-piece Darth Vader Lego set. We will announce the winner in like probably next weekend or so. Check that out. On tap for today, I am joined by Brock. We are going to do our expectations for the Sixers bench. You can follow Brock on Twitter at LandisBrock. What's going on, man?
I feel great. I'm excited to do the podcast. And I mean, come on. It's electric in Philadelphia. We've got Sixers basketball starting tomorrow, and this is what we've been waiting for. And there's basketball from tomorrow until at least mid-June. So we've got a plethora of basketball. I cannot wait. I'm super excited. I can't wait to do this pod with you, Chris. I said it before. You go at one speed. Your foot is on the gas pedal all times. You've been cranking out content, doing the podcast, and you go one speed, so you've been doing a lot of work, and I'm definitely grateful to be able to do this with you because you're pretty much the main reason why we're getting all these subscribers. You're pumping out content like it's your job.
That's what we do here.
Even on vacation, pumping out content.
Oh, man, I just got back from vacation. I'm having a drink. Work is going to be rough tomorrow morning. But here we are. The Sixers start tomorrow night, their first preseason game. I was actually at the Sixers blue-white scrimmage at the 76ers Fieldhouse in Delaware. It was just a really fun time. But woosah, man. Expectations couldn't be any higher for this team, and it starts tomorrow night. Make sure you follow our awesome Sixers content at 76ers TPL on Twitter and all of our content at thepainted.com. Whew! Ready to do this, man?
Absolutely. I'm curious to know first, what was the atmosphere? What was it like during the blue and white game?
Dude, it was fun, man. First and foremost, well, we're going to get into the depth into the bench here, but man, Matisse Thybulle, dude, he just stole the show. There was like a stretch of like 10 minutes where he was just in every single defensive possession.
Yeah.
He was stripping the ball, deflecting passes, starting the fast break. It became a thing. People were cheering for him in the stands.
Wow.
It was wild, man. He is the real deal. We're going to get into Matisse today. I can't wait.
Absolutely.
Dude, he's awesome. His defense, his wingspan, his athletic. We're going to get into this. But it's as good as advertised, maybe better. And even Elton Brand spoke about that before the game. You can find that interview on our YouTube page. Before the game, Elton Brand spoke about Matisse and how he's blowing away expectations. So, whew, man, jacked up.
Yeah, and then he's got a pretty little smile. He's got a great personality. He's around the team. He's hanging out with everybody. He's like the young Simba that everybody's embracing. So I'm most definitely excited to see Tease. But first and foremost, like you said, we've got a lot of depth to talk about.
We do.
So where do we start? Let's talk chop. Where do we start?
We're going to start with Mike Scott. All right, so Mike Scott, 7.8 points, 3.8 boards, 41% from three in 24 minutes per game with the Sixers last year. What do you want to see from Mike Scott this preseason?
I want to see exactly that. Mike Scott is a shooter that's reached 38.0+% from beyond the arc, and that's what he's getting paid to do. He's a serviceable role player for the 76ers, and his personality heightens him to become larger than life. All you need Mike Scott to do is step in and play 15 to 20 minutes at most. If he can knock down a couple of threes, that's great. He plays tough defense, and you really just need bench depth. And in bench depth, you need shooting and you need defense, and Mike Scott offers both. He's versatile for his size. He can move great. He's very athletic. And Mike Scott's a guy that we really embrace. So as long as the Hive is alive and well, we will embrace Mike Scott, regardless of what he does on the floor. But the Sixers paid him to do just that, produce in his limited amount of minutes, and I think he'll do just fine in that role.
Nailed it. 100%. What do I want to see from Mike Scott? Be you. Be you, Mike Scott. Whether it's wearing your hockey jerseys or the Hive or sipping alcohol from Sixers fans during games, man. Like, this is like one of the more unique players in Philadelphia. Everyone knows he's a 40% three-point shooter. What do I expect from Mike Scott? Be you, baby. He is just such a lovable guy on the Sixers roster. Be you. That's my one thing I want to see from Mike Scott. I can't wait to see him for a full year, man.
Right, and we might need Mike Scott to come up with something new because the NBA implemented a rule that NBA players couldn't wear ninja headbands, which Jimmy Butler and Mike Scott were at the forefront of, and now Mike Scott is deprived of his own right to wear the ninja headband. He might need to come up with something else, but I don't doubt Mike Scott's going to. He's one of the more creative guys I've ever observed in the NBA, and like I said, with the Hive alive and well, they will embrace Mike Scott, and they've got some creative people in that fan base, so Mike Scott's going to come up with something.
Hell yeah, man. Let's move on to James Ennis. 5.3 points, 3.6 boards. He shot 30% from three in 15 minutes a game with the 76ers last year. What do you want to see from James Ennis this preseason, dude?
Again, limited minutes, but I just want to see creativeness from James Ennis. And in the postseason last year, he was creative. He helped space him and pace. And I think, James Ennis is not the type of guy that's ever going to be the primary scorer on the floor for Philadelphia, and because of that might allow him more opportunities. So if he's on the floor and there's a potential rotation where Ben Simmons, Richardson, and Horford on the floor, something of that sort, I think James Ennis will definitely get lost in translation for defense. And in doing that, all he has to do is hit his spots, and he's gonna make that shot. So if he could hit the corners, be himself, be creative, I think James Ennis is going to be just fine.
Now, my thing I want to see from James Ennis is pretty simple. It's a clear role. This is Ennis' 6th NBA team. And as crazy as it sounds, I don't know if you remember, man, but there were times in the NBA playoffs last year that James Ennis looked like the best player on that court. Like, he was leading the Sixers. I think Ennis played in that 20 minutes per game range in the playoffs. I expect that this season. How much that takes away from Zhaire Smith's time, we'll see. I don't know. But I think it's important to say, like, when you talk about James Ennis and Mike Scott, and then you look back at the Sixers' depth from last year, man, like, you talk about Mike Muscala, you talk about J.J. Redick coming off the bench, you talk about, Wilson Chandler was a big nothing. Just significant upgrades back-to-back for those two guys. And you look at how great that Sixers starting lineup was and how much they really struggled. Those two trades really gutted the team in depth. And those Ennis, Scott, man, I'm just real psyched to watch these guys play a full year with the 76ers. So
right on. And James Ennis took a pay cut to stay in Philadelphia. He likes what the organization is doing, and he loves the city of Philadelphia, and the city of Philadelphia loves him. And you alluded to it. In the playoffs, he provided relief for the 76ers team if they went stagnant or they weren't moving the ball well. James Ennis was the guy who was the primary for the 76ers. And this season, because of how much more deep they are, I don't think he's ever going to be the primary creator, but because of that might allow him more opportunities. If he hits a spot, he'll be just fine.
Just two very lovable guys here on the Sixers bench. Ennis, Scott, these are energy guys that the fans are just going to be right behind all year long. Thank God there was no more Mike Muscala. Major credit needs to be given to Elton Brand for getting these guys cheaper and coming back to the Sixers. And look at Ennis. He's talking about wanting to play with the Sixers long term. Major kudos to Elton Brand.
Absolutely. And at the same time, simultaneously, the Los Angeles Lakers gave up one of their better young assets for Mike Muscala, and now the Clippers have him. And I don't know what it is about Mike Muscala that keeps him prominent in today's NBA, but I'm glad he's no longer a 76er, and you're absolutely right. Two bona fide role players that know their role, which is the most important. They're not going to try to do too much. They're going to be themselves on the floor. And now if you have them, even at the bottom of your bench, I think it's going to be very impactful because you look at this team last season, not too much production from the bench during the first half of the season. They were one of the worst benches, but now they bolster the bench, and these are two guys you might even forget that come off the bench in a second or third rotation. So it's very impactful to have them. Yep.
Let's move on to Mr. Zhaire Smith, one of my favorite players on the Sixers. If you follow the Blue Route, you know that Zhaire Smith is my top three favorite players on the Sixers. He only played in 6 games with the team last year, but he did average 12 points a game, 1.4 steals. He shot 31% from 3 during the Summer League. What do you want to see from Zhaire Smith this preseason, man?
I want to see his motor. And NBA players with a renowned motor usually hang around. I'll talk about Montrezl Harrell for a moment. He's the type of guy that was drafted undersized, not really sure what his role was going to be in an NBA team, shipped out to the Clippers, and his renowned motor is what kept him prominent, and now he's a starting job on potentially one of the better teams in the NBA. Zhaire Smith has that same motor. He's always on his toes. He's constantly cutting backdoor. He sets on and off ball screens. He infiltrates defenses by way of the baseline. These are some observations I've made in such a small sample size. And if you notice these things already, it means his ceiling is incredibly high. He plays ferociously. He fills the lanes. I'll go back to college because of how small the sample size is, but he totaled 185 rebounds. 83 of them came offensively, which means he's crashing the board. He's keeping possessions alive, and he does it ferociously. There's not many guys that have a motor as good as Smith's, and his ceiling is incredibly high. He jumped 41.5 inches on his vertical leap at the Combine, which was the 4th highest among all 2018 draft prospects. And his wingspan is 6 feet 10 inches at a height of 6'4". Guards Drew Holiday and Victor Oladipo, the same height and 2 defensive-minded guards, have wingspans of 6'7" and 6'9". So Smith's wingspan is incredibly impressive. He can jump out the gym. He's got a very renowned motor, and I'm very excited for Smith. As long as he plays, he's going to be electric, and I'm happy. Now they finally have a guy that's going to get you out of your seat, off the couch, and screaming because of his energy. J.J. Redick isn't jumping out the gym.
Get out.
T.J. McConnell isn't jumping out the gym. Zhaire Smith, he's taking off.
All right, there's so many things here. God, you might, man. I love having you on Party on Broad because every time you're on, I feel like running through a goddamn brick wall. All right, let's talk about Zhaire Smith. There's so many things here, but for me, it's defense in the backcourt. Watching the Sixers last year and their inability to defend guards last year was borderline laughable. Nearly every decent point guard on any other team just destroyed them in 2018. So, you know, I just want Zhaire Smith to come in and on day one on the Sixers home court, show that he has the ability to lock down a point guard, a shooting guard. I just need that on-ball defense to be on point. And then my other one, I just want to see body language. Man, I covered him in Delaware, and you saw him, man. He was down. He was working, but you really have seen him open up personally, emotionally over the last several months. It's been night and day different. I just want to see him enjoying basketball again. We've seen it in Summer League. When he dunks, he's like, he's a flashy guy. You didn't see any of that last January in Delaware. So I just want to see him smile. I want to see that youthful energy off the bench. And I want to see just a tenacious defender. That's all I want to see from Zhaire. I can't wait to cover him with the Blue Root. He's going to be really fun to watch.
Right on. And let me add something about his suffocating defense. At Texas Tech, despite what he did offensively, set freshman records for point scoring. He allowed just .444 points per possession on an isolation possession basis, which was good for the 92nd percentile. And he owned a defensive rating of 94.6, then the best in the nation. So Zhaire Smith is suffocating defensively. He's got incredible spring. He's a fantastic athlete. And I think his motor is going to keep him prominent in today's NBA. If he's not the primary creator on the floor, he will be a spark plug. And like I said, spark plugs always find a spot on rosters.
What has been the major theme when you watch all of our let's turn that off. When you watch all of our Sixers player interviews on our YouTube channel, what's the one reoccurring theme that keeps coming up from Brett Brown, the players, Elton Brand? It's defense. Everyone is talking about defense. And when you think about Zhaire Smith, man, and what he could become, focusing on just perimeter defense, lockdown, on-ball defense, it's going to be something really, really fun to watch.
Absolutely. And you think back to the Bridges trade, and at the time it seemed questionable. A Villanova kid, his mom worked for the Philadelphia organization. You can keep him in Philadelphia. You can nurture him. They needed a 3-and-D scorer at the time. It seemed like Smith was more of a project, but hindsight's always 20/20, and looking back at it right now, I think the project was most definitely worth it.
Oh yeah.
And you can talk about all of the good things that Bridges has done defensively, the potential he has, but I think he's reached his ceiling. I think the most you'll see out of Bridges is a 3-and-D score, and that's it. The neat thing about Smith is you don't know what his ceiling is. He's such a freak athlete. His motor is incredibly high. He does so many things good in basketball court, and yet he's so young and inexperienced. You really don't know what his ceiling is. So it seems like that project was most definitely worth the wait.
Absolutely, and he showed a lot of promise in that summer league, man. He showed up some pull-up jumpers. He showed some handles. But what I love about Zhaire Smith, what Brett Brown loves about Zhaire Smith, is his ability to run off the ball. You know, he's always active. His ability to crash the boards, crash the glass is elite. And let's move on to Mr. Matisse Thybulle,
Yeah.
who was the standout of the Sixers blue-white scrimmage last Saturday. In 5 summer league games, Matisse averaged 11.6 points, 2 steals, and he shot 39% from 3. What are you looking for from Matisse Thybulle this year?
I think well-roundedness. His game has a lot of aspects, but I'd like for well-roundedness to happen in the preseason. I want to see him be good at a lot of things, not great at one thing. I don't want him to be a great shooter. I don't want him to be a great defender. I don't want him to be specifically one great thing. I want him to check off multiple boxes and be good at multiple things. He can hit the corner. His jump shot looks fluent. I want him to find the ball on the floor and hit his spots, hit those jump shots. Defensively, he's so active and so aware. He throws his hands around. He's got a long wingspan. He moves so quickly. I want him to be good at multiple things, be well-rounded, and the Sixers can nurture him. He's got a lot of good guys on that team that can develop him as a player.
My first thought about Matisse Thybulle was, and I'm included in this, so I'm guilty as well, but when we had a draft party at Victory Brewing Company during the draft, I was one of the people that was screaming at the Sixers for not using all of those second-round picks and adding to the roster. Boy, I saw him play at the 76ers Fieldhouse, and I looked stupid. I looked straight stupid.
Changed your mind.
I mean, what I want to see from Matisse is just obviously perimeter defense, most notably deflecting passes in the passing lanes, generating steals. That is what Matisse is. That is what he should be. I think that's going to translate, obviously, from day one. He's going to be a fan favorite from day one. I think that's his first step, especially with Brett Brown, in terms of getting playing time early on this season. But it's creating points off turnovers. They really lost that. Sorry, Jimmy Butler, you don't got it. You didn't bring it defensively last year. But Matisse Thybulle is that almost Rocco elite, Rocco rich kind of player. He's just got such a huge wingspan, and his ability to cause havoc on defense is something we haven't seen since Robert Covington. And I think Robert Covington is his floor. I think this is like another one of those Zhaire Smith situations. I think he's better than we give him credit for. He's really good, man.
There's definitely a lot of uncertainty because there's a small sample size, but it's a good problem to have. The Sixers have a backup point guard problem right now, and potentially a shooting guard problem with Zhaire and Matisse. So it's really a great problem to have these young guys fighting for minutes, because not only is it competitive, which means the two of them will make each other better in competition, but at the same time, it means Brett Brown can get creative. And if either of these guys pans out, it's a win for the Sixers, because they didn't spend much on either of them, in my opinion. I think the second round draft capital was more so it was more so a product of what the fan base wanted because of personality. Carson Edwards is a guy that the fans got behind, and there was players in the second round that the draft capital would have been spent on guys that the fans wanted more so for their personality than they're playing. That was the heartbreak for a lot of Sixers fans this season. You lose some of that personality in Jimmy Butler and T.J. McConnell, but the price you pay is that you get good, able-bodied, competent bench help, and that's what the Sixers lacked. If they had a competent bench that could rebound and create last season, you could argue they beat Toronto, and they didn't, in part due to the lack of bench depth. So now they have very competent guys coming off their bench, and I'm excited for Tease. I'm excited for Zhaire, and I think it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, man. Cannot wait. Matisse is the real deal. This is a guy that everyone's going to fall in love with. Let's move on to Kyle O'Quinn. O'Quinn averaged 3.5 points, 2.6 boards in 8 minutes per game with the Indiana Pacers last year. What are you looking for from Kyle O'Quinn this preseason, man?
I just want his big body to play good defense. I don't need Kyle Quinn to do anything offensively. He's got a fair shooting percentage. He's got a very nice true shooting percentage, but he was buried in Indiana's rotation a season prior. You can't look to his statistics because there were so many bigs on that roster. He hardly got any playing time, but the season prior, he almost had 2 offensive win shares, nearly 2 defensive win shares, so he's a positive player. He's got some value over the league average. And I think Kyle O'Quinn just needs to play stout defense. He's a tough bruiser. All he has to do is be 6'10" and stand in the middle of the paint, cause a log jam, stand there like a big tree, and defenders, it's going to help the 76ers so much because offenses are going to bounce out of the paint. You get a guy like Joel Embiid, no one wants to go in the paint. You got a guy like Kyle O'Quinn, no one's going to want to go in the paint. These guys are big, they're bruisers, they're physical, and this was the match made in heaven. I remember playing 2K13, 14, 15, 16 with Quincy Acey and Kyle O'Quinn on my bench because they were so damn tough. They set tough screens, they rebound well, and that's what you want your 10th, 11th man to do. Get some boards, set good screens, and everybody else handle the rest. Kyle O'Quinn, don't get too fancy. Stick to your role, play some tough defense.
All right. We're on the opposite spectrum here. What do I want to see from Kyle O'Quinn, dude? It's point blank. Lose his spot to Norvel Pelle. You probably saw that coming if you follow the Blue Route. Sorry, man. It's not personal. There's nothing more important for a backup center than protecting the rim and rolling to the basket. Pelle should 100% be the guy that backs up Joel Embiid this season. It's not even a question to me. Sorry, Kyle O'Quinn. It's Norvel Pelle. I'm not expecting anything from Kyle O'Quinn. You're out.
Well, you know what? You're making me look bad. That's what this is. You didn't tell me we're going to be talking about Pelle. You made me prepare for Kyle O'Quinn. If I knew we were talking Pelle, come on, man. I would have dug some stuff up. I agree with you. I love Pelle. I think he's going to be an elite shot blocker off the bench. He's very polished offensively. If he can stay out of foul trouble, he's got a lot of promise. And I'm glad you brought that up because I think we need to enlighten a lot of 76ers fans. Pelle is very good.
And that was one of the biggest things last year, lack of rim protection when Joel Embiid hit the bench. Need Norvel Pelle. We need someone that can protect the rim. If you follow the Blue Route TPL, we are accepting all applicants for the Pelle's Bells fan club. It's the number one Norvel Pelle fan club in all of Twitter. Check it out. So let's move. Let's move on to Trey Burke. Trey played 33 games with the New York Knicks last year. 11.8 points, 2.8 assists, shot 35% from 3 in 21 minutes per game. What are you looking for from Trey Burke this preseason?
I want Trey Burke to be good defensively, and I think game flow is going to dictate what happens with Neto and Trey Burke. I think if the Sixers need shooting desperately, Trey Burke will be in the game, but if they have a lead and they're trying to defend the lead, that's Neto's position. But again, that's a good problem to have. I'm going to raffle off some Trey Burke statistics here because in the numbers, he is pretty productive. As a pick and roll ball handler, my apologies, he ran this with the 7th most frequency in the NBA, 49.4%. He averaged 6.4 points per game as the PNR ball handler, which was tied for 18th in the NBA. And again, he didn't get top 18 minutes, so he's producing in limited minutes. And he had a 5.3% turnover frequency, which was tied for the 9th lowest in a minimum of 50 games. So he's useful in the PNR. As a starter, he averaged 11.8 points per game and shot 29.3% from beyond the arc. But off the bench, nearly the same amount of point production, but he shot 36.3% from beyond the arc, which means if he's not creating, if he's just receiving passes and maybe 1 or 2 dribbles, putting a 3-point shot up, he's more productive off the bench than he would be as a starter. And of course, on the Sixers team, there would be no reason for him to start. Post All-Star break, his field goal percentage rose 5.6% to 47%, so he made over 45% of his shots from the field. He had a free throw attempt rate of 14.8 in 2017, and then in 2018, it jumped to 22.6. So he's creative, he found ways to get to the line, and he can contribute. Defensively, I will say he is much better than TJ McConnell, which I'm optimistic about. Statistically, Him and McConnell are almost identical offensively. You could argue McConnell is more productive offensively. But defensively, the numbers are in favor of Trey Burke. In 408 minutes spent with Dallas, the Mavericks allowed 4.9 less points per 100 possessions. They influenced 1.5 more turnovers and caused opponents to shoot 2.6% in regard to effective field goal percentage worse with Trey Burke on the floor. So he provided a lot of aid for this Dallas Mavericks team defensively. TJ McConnell was negative in every department essentially for the Philadelphia 76ers. So regardless of what Trey Burke does offensively, if he plays his role as a defender, he'll be a replacement, and I'll argue an upgrade over TJ McConnell.
How dare you, first of all. How dare you speak negatively about TJ McConnell on this podcast?
Listen, he is the poster child for the TPL podcast and Party on Broad. He is most definitely the poster child. But come on, let go of him. TJ McConnell's in Indiana. He's got new threads on. He's no longer in Philadelphia. And I think he is reminiscent of the process. But my friend, this is no longer the process.
Yeah.
This is the Eastern Conference Revenge Tour. We're taking no prisoners. And this isn't about TJ McConnell and being cute for the fan base and doing this and that. They're a championship caliber basketball team, and you need to upgrade at the backup point guard position. Trey Burke's definitely an upgrade.
You're not wrong. What do I want to see from Trey Burke is I would just want to see an efficient score. The Sixers have so many versatile players, especially on defense, that I think this is finally a kind of player that has a real chance to make an impact on the Sixers. Dude, you opened up Pandora's box there. This is going to be a TJ McConnell themed podcast from now on. Let's move on to Mr. Shake Milton. Most Sixers fans were quick to kind of dog him from the last Summer League. He didn't got it, man. The shot wasn't falling. It was in his head. I don't know if he was in shape or out of shape. Whatever. I'm not going to give you the stats. You all know them. What do you want to see from Shake Milton this year?
I think he's big and athletic. I just want to see him develop into a better decision maker. And he's turnover prone, and as a point guard, you can't be. And you're not going to get a spot on the 76 roster if you are turnover prone because you have issues with turnovers already. Ben Simmons does it pretty frequently, Joel Embiid. So I think he needs to develop into a better decision maker. I'll give him a year to the learning curve, another year or so. But if he can't develop quick enough, I don't foresee him maintaining a position on this roster any much longer. He's big, he's athletic, which is neat at the point guard position. But again, if he's that turnover prone, I don't foresee him maintaining position on this roster.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is just translate your game, man. I saw it firsthand from Shake in Delaware. Dude, he can handle. He can, he's very good at body control. He can finish in the paint. He can run a pick and roll. I saw all of that in Delaware. It didn't happen in the Summer League for whatever reason. But I just want to see that Shake that I saw in Delaware copy-paste into the Sixers this season. I want to see his confidence back. Obviously, the shot's got to fall. But, he checks off all the boxes. He's a good defender. He can pass. He can defend. All those things that the Sixers are looking for. I don't know how he's going to get his playing time, especially early on. But I think, like you said, Brock, I think we're going to see a lot of him in Delaware this year. Let's move on to Raul Neto. Go ahead, man. What do you want to see from Raul Neto?
Now, this is interesting, and I definitely think that game flow will dictate when he's in the basketball game, but I've got a couple of takeaways here in reading what Neto's done a season prior. He offers anywhere from 8 to 14 minutes per game. He shot over 39.5% from three twice in 4 seasons, so he's serviceable as a three-point shooter and a point guard off the bench. But here are 3 really interesting things. And in a modern NBA, where a prototype like Bob Cousy is almost obsolete, Neto is Cousy reincarnated. And all jokes aside, I have the numbers to support that. He most frequently attempts field goals less than 10 feet away from the basket. He did this with 47.5% frequency. He most frequently attempts field goals after 7+ dribbles. He did this 30.6% of the time. I don't know any other NBA player, frankly,
TJ
that dribbles 7+. Yeah, exactly. So he dribbles 7+ times and then shoots his field goals, and he did that with the most frequency. And check this out. He most frequently passed to Joe Ingles 18% of the time, Derek Favors 16% of the time, and Jay Crowder 14.3% of the time. So rather than looking towards the perimeter, he does a lot of penetrating, and he finds either cutting forwards or big men, which I think is useful for the 76ers. You get a guy like Joel Embiid with his back to the basket. Raul Neto takes 12, 15 dribbles, can't find a shot, kicks it to Joel Embiid for a little J near the blocker, helps him break his guy down. I think Neto will be in the game depending on game flow. But again, I think he's a very serviceable point guard, and it's a good product for the Sixers to have.
I will die if we see Raul like dribble into the post and just kind of dribble it back out to the perimeter that TJ did like every single game. I would just die. That'd be so funny. What do I want to see from Raul Neto? Slap the floor. Come on, man. I want to see you. This is TJ McConnell. I got to give you some TJ McConnell love. Is it too much to ask for from Raul Neto to slap the floor every single defensive possession? I need my TJ fix, man. All right, let's move on. I just want to see him hit shots. Let's be honest here. It's hitting those open threes that we really need him for. When he steps on the court, he's going to get wide open 3-point shot after 3-point shot. That's all. If he can make that shot and be 40% like he was back in 2017, he'll be fine. He's passable.
Money.
Yeah. Next up, ready to move on to the Timely Deuce?
I'm always ready, baby.
Love it. All right, so let's move on to the Timely Deuce. This is a new concept with Party on Broad. It's just a bunch. It's like a 5-pack of questions. It's meant to be answered quickly, but since it's just you and me, I think it's normally I give a winner and they get the turn garbage into gold award, but it's just me and Brock, so we're just gonna go back and forth. It is what it is, right, dude?
the viewer is the true winner. They get garbage to gold. They get to hear both of our opinions, so they're the true winner.
100%. All right, let's start off with the first question. Who is the best defensive player on the current 76ers roster?
I think the obvious answer is Joel Embiid, but I'm going to say Josh Richardson. And I say that because he's a guy, 2.5 deflections per game. He's very stout defensively. He flies on the floor. And I think if Josh Richardson can just play well, him and Ben Simmons might be one of the best defensive guard duos in the NBA.
I love it. It really speaks to the Sixers' defensive depth here. I didn't want to go Joel. That's too easy, man. I'm going with Ben. Yeah. I'm going with Ben. Ben has made it explicitly clear defensive MVP is what he's going for. He would love to win that award this season. I choose Ben. I think he's going to just have a monster year. Next question. Who is your favorite Sixers player of all time and why?
Now, there's a couple of obvious answers. Julius Erving, Moses Malone, Andrew Toney, et cetera, et cetera. I never watched any of them. I'm 19 years old. I grew up on Ben Simmons, on Joel Embiid. So when I'm 40, 50, 60 years old and I tell my children, hopefully, the story of the Philadelphia 76ers, I'm talking about Ben Simmons. I'm talking about Joel Embiid. I'm talking about Toby. I'm going with Ben Simmons. Like I said, I might be one of the biggest Ben Simmons cheerleader, a Josh Richardson cheerleader, whatever it may be. Number 25, Ben Simmons is my guy. It's the obvious answer.
All right. I'm going with Robert Covington. I'm mid-30s, so I've seen a lot of bad Sixers basketball in my life. But it's got to be Robert Covington. I was just a truther for Rocco. I've always been a fan of the 3-and-D player. I mean, I look back and like my favorite players, George Lynch, Tayshaun Prince, all those guys are just. I've always been a fan of that modern style of basketball. Just the 3-and-D, man. I've always been a fan. I think I'm probably leaning towards Ben moving forward. I could easily see myself like 5 or 10 years from now, and if Ben Simmons is my guy for whatever reason.
Now, I normally would have said Joel Embiid. The way he played basketball during the process era, it was so fun. It was so innocent. He just mentally and physically dominated opponents. But I think Ben is blossoming into a superstar. Now you're starting to see his personality a little more. He's a very wealthy man, if I may say so myself. So he's spending some of that money on chains and clothing and going out and clubbing and taking the team out. So you're seeing a lot more of Ben's personality, and I'm very excited to be a 76ers fan. I hope Ben's here for his entire career, and that's the guy I'm going to look back on and tell my children was my favorite basketball player. I grew up with Ben. I mean, he's only a couple of years older than me, so I grew up with Ben. That's
crazy. It's just the most divisive player. Like, so many Sixers fans, NBA fans, just shrug off the ability to defend 1 through 5. Like it's nothing. Like he's just such a unique and special talent. I love Ben. I love Ben.
Yeah, we could do an entire party on Broad of me basically rallying off everything I have on Ben Simmons. Well, he does this well. I've got this statistic. I am such a Ben Simmons cheerleader, and I have no shame in saying that. I love the guy. I love the mean mugging. And last season, even a season before that, when you got Marcus Smart, Marcus Morris, Jared Dudley, everybody nitpicking and getting in Ben Simmons' head, that infuriates me. So now you see Ben's personality a little more. When he takes over games and dominates, starts mean mugging and flexing his muscles, don't be surprised. It's a forewarning for the league, but don't be surprised when Ben comes out with a chip on his shoulder.
Everyone calls it arrogance. I just see confidence, man. I see confidence that in his game, in his defense. Now the jump shot, that's a whole other party on Broad. We should line that up, I guess. But he did pass up a wide open jump shot during the scrimmage. I don't know if you saw that, and people were like booing in the stands. True story.
Now, I don't know if I want to get into this, Chris, because this is like it's like a bottomless hole.
Yeah,
it just doesn't end. It just doesn't end. We can talk about it for hours.
Yeah,
but we should definitely line that up and have a discussion soon.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be talking a lot about Ben. We're going to be doing another party on Broad, a reaction pod after the Sixers' first preseason game tomorrow night. I'm sure we'll be talking about lack or maybe a lot of jump shots from Ben. Who knows? Next up, you have to pick one. Who would you rather win the next Philly championship? Is it the Eagles or is it the Sixers?
It's easily the Sixers. I already saw an Eagles championship. I could care less at this point. I told you the first podcast, I have withdrawn all of my emotional currency from the Eagles, and I've deposited it into the 76ers. I could care less what happens with Philadelphia Eagles. And I'm not afraid to say that on a podcast in which most of our viewers are Philadelphia Eagles fans.
Yep.
It's the 76ers' turn. You haven't seen it in over 2 decades. I mean, they've got so many youthful guys with such great personalities. The parade would be hilarious. It would be incredible to attend. And I mean, with football, it's a game, right? It's one game that determines the fate. But with basketball, you get 7 games potentially. It's going to be a nonstop battle for the Sixers if they get there. And I think that makes it all the more triumphant if they win.
It's hands down the Sixers. This shit is not like just a game, man. This shit's personal.
It is.
If the Sixers win it, man, that reassures that we were always right. We were always right. The media was wrong, and it was always worth it. And if that happens, I mean, maybe I'm a little biased. Who cares? But I would love a Sixers championship for Ben, Joel. Dude, you're looking at one of the best young rosters in all of basketball. To win a championship, oh, man.
I mean, this team essentially revolutionized basketball. And I'd make the argument because they were at the forefront of rebuilding and tanking. And now you see a lot of teams, they give up players for draft capital and draft assets, and they essentially tank as well. And I think Philadelphia is so scrutinized because they were the first to do it. And now with the Ben Simmons jump shot, he's one of the more scrutinized athletes in all of the NBA. Joel Embiid, highly hated league-wide for some reason. It's a team full of Bulldogs, and James Ennis called their bench a bunch of Bulldogs. So, Chris, I'm excited. And if they win, I think they're going to celebrate with a chip on their shoulder, too.
And you see what James Ennis said. I totally forgot that we didn't put this as part of the James Ennis segment, but he literally Jimmy Rollins the Sixers like a month ago, saying the Sixers will walk into the finals this year. that was pretty cool. Next up, we have who gets more this season? Is it Ben Simmons 3-point field goals made, or is it Mike Scott sips of alcoholic beverages from Sixers fans this season?
Oh, my God. It's a shame we even have to have this discussion, isn't it?
Little segue.
I'm going to go Mike Scott. I'm going to go Mike Scott. I think Philadelphia fans are going to be a little more generous. After he was sipping Jack and made it known he's sipping Jack, no ice, they're going to be offering that up. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be on the bench leaning back, taking beers and Jack, no ice, drinking it straight during a game. But, Mike Scott, he gets a little chip. He might fall in the stands, and if he does so at the Wells Fargo Arena, I think those Philadelphia fans are going to be generous and offer him a couple sips of their alcohol. But don't get it twisted. Mike Scott might be the only exception. I don't know how many players Philadelphia athletes would offer their beer for or their alcohol. You know how Philadelphians are with their alcohol. So it takes a special player to do that. Mike Scott, I'm thinking he has more sips of alcoholic beverages than Ben Simmons has made three-point shots this season.
I agree with that. I agree. Sorry. I see Ben falling into the same way he's played basketball his entire life. I'm a little worried about that, but either way, if he shoots it or doesn't shoot it, you don't need to shoot threes for Ben Simmons to be effective. You need Ben Simmons to be aggressive. And if we can get Ben to play one way all season this year, we'll be fine. I'm not even worried about the three-point shot this year anyway. So that's my little take on Ben.
Well, my little take is that he is, if not, one of the best players in transition in the NBA. Mm-hmm. And in the half court, you can make your arguments about Ben Simmons being inefficient, ineffective as a flanker, or just standing on the low block and letting the offense operate. But my argument is you've got a guy that's 22 years old. He assists almost 8 people a game. He scores over 15 points a game almost every single night. He rebounds well. He does so many things. He is the quarterback of this offense. And without him, the offense is a lot worse. LeBron James, it took him 5 years to win a championship. Giannis Antetokounmpo, it took him 4 years to gain any relevance. Kevin Durant, James Harden. There have been a lot of players that haven't done much in their first 2, 3, 4, even 5 seasons in the NBA. People forget. Ben Simmons is 22 years old, and he's already arguably a top 15 player in the NBA without this proclaimed jump shot. If he has the threat or the illusion of one, he will beat defenders off ball. He'll get to the basket a lot quicker. He already gets fouled a ton. And now on top of that, you add a partial jump shot to your arsenal. He's unstoppable. Give him 3 years, he'll be a league MVP.
Yep. He just needs to be a threat. He needs to be a threat when he's sitting in that corner in the half-court set. He needs to be a threat enough to either cut to the basket or something that defenders can't sag off him. As much as we saw during that last playoff series. The last question of the night is: would you rather be loyal to a team but never win an NBA championship, or be hated for being loyal but win 3 NBA rings?
Well, let me preface this by saying I've been loyal to this damn organization for years on end. And if I had to endure the process team for my entire life, yet be loyal to that team my entire life, I would go nuts. I would. The goal of the organization is to win a championship. As a fan, your one desire is to see your team win a championship. The Sixers now have been the closest in recent memory to deliver that championship. I don't give a damn about loyalty. I want the rings. I want the championships. I want it for their legacy, and I want it for my resume. I want to be able to tell people I celebrated the Sixers championship. And it's like you said earlier, Chris, it's a slap in the face to all of the media and everybody that scrutinized Philadelphia and said this and that about the city and the organization. If they win a championship, we are the true winners as well. Amen.
He is Brock Lesnar. It's been a long day, man. It's been a long day.
I completely understand. That's a compliment. Lesnar's a cool guy.
I mean, the comparisons are there a little bit,
A little bit. A couple of more years for me, and then Lesnar might be a little senile, so I'm hoping I don't get there yet. But
all right, Brock Landis. Follow him on Twitter at LandisBrock. I'm Deibs, Mr. Crockpot on Twitter. Make sure you check out all of our Sixers content at 76ers TPL on Twitter. Follow our YouTube channel. Make sure you hit subscribe and like this below. Thank you again. We are nearly 1,000 YouTube subscribers. That is crazy to me. I can't even wrap my head around it. But we are going to be grinding. We will be giving you a reaction video to pretty much every single game this Sixers season moving forward. Expect that coming very soon for Brock, for myself. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay awesome.
Sixers win it! Wow! Oh, man, Embiid just posterized Russell Westbrook.
You love the Philadelphia Eagles? Let me get a hell yeah!